Want to know the number one enemy when it comes to getting more sales? After closing over 5.4 million in online sales and managing 4 different sales teams to their first 7 figures, I realized it's one key thing. I call this the energy demon. So energy blocks are the biggest things that will actually get in the way of you excelling in sales and getting to that next level. So I'm giving you a behind the scenes sneak peek of a sales energy 101 masterclass that I did with a 7-figure sales team. Now, take some notes and actually digest this stuff, because this is what people actually pay me to do. So you're actually getting this for free. And if you stick until the end, I'll actually get you all the resources that you can personally use to not only close more deals, but level up your energy so you show up powerful, and most importantly, slam every single opportunity and maximize it to the fullest. I'll see you on the other side. What I have found after taking over 4,000 sales calls, doing probably more call reviews than that, is it's not tactics, it's not strategies, it's not even mindset, y'all. What I found is actually an energy block. And so when I started to really think deeply of all my reps and even my own journey, I realized, and I'll zoom in a little bit here for you guys, I created this pyramid that stacking sales skills and building a long-term sales career is actually 4 things. It's understanding the tactics, it's understanding the strategies in the sales system, it's understanding the mindset and beliefs, but it actually goes deeper than that. At the core foundational of you, Justin, of you, Garrett, is actually energy. It's energy. And so time and time again, what I find almost 9 out of 10 times, the biggest bottleneck for sales reps is not actually even a mindset thing. It actually goes deeper than that, which is at the core of what we are, which is our energy. And so I'm going to break down a little bit of what each kind of stack of the pyramid is. But today I'm mainly going to focus on these 2. I'm going to focus on the foundation, which is the energy and the mindset, what I call the sales OS. Because I can teach you guys how to follow up. I can teach you guys how to do discovery. I can teach you guys how to do the pitch. But if there's one thing, if I never spoke with you guys ever again, if there's one seed I want to plant, it's that we need to tackle our energy blocks. Because oftentimes we're not even aware of them happening. Sales is at the core a transference of energy. So if you want to have a great sales call, if you want to have a great long-term sales career, it all comes down to that core. Track with me so far, fellas? Right? So that being said, energy, let's define that. What does that compose of? It's things like our values. It's things like our body language. It's things like alignment with our goals, our tonality, our intention, our presence, our subcommunication. Because I personally know if I came to this workshop with you guys today and I was like hunched over, low energy, maybe I was drinking the night before, hungover, I would give you guys maybe 30 to 50% of my energy at best. And so the game of sales is a game of energy management. It's not lead management. It's not time management even. It's a game of energy management. Because I don't know if you guys can relate to this. When I have a call, like let's say a calendar day of like 5 or 6 sales calls, at the beginning of my career, do you think I was giving the same energy on call number 1 than I was on call number 5? No way. No way. I was not going for the objection of let me think about it as hard on call number 5 as I was on call number 2 of the day, right? That's where I was in my amateur years. I didn't know how to actually solve for that. So what made me a more veteran sales pro, what made me a top sales pro in any one of my teams was I know how to manage and actually work my energy to my advantage, because guess what? On call number 5, I was still going the same on let me think about it objections as I was in call number 2. And guess what? On week 3, week 4, when it was closing the quarter, I was still knowing how to bring the right amount of energy for that week than I was in week 1. Make sense? So if we can figure out how to solve those energy blocks, if we can figure out how to play the long term and the short game, these are the things that's going to help you guys win in the long term, right? And so with that being said, I'm going to help you guys stack this one by one. I'm going to give you guys some bonus resources as well so that after our time together is done, you guys are able to go deeper into some of my training on this energy work, on the Sales OS, okay? Because we have 35, 45 minutes today to go through this stuff. I'm not going to be able to go super deep on any one of these things all today, but I want to start planting the seed. I want to actually toil the soil, as they say, so that when we plant that seed, it grows. Make sense? Okay, cool. So again, without the right energy, it doesn't matter if you have the right script, the right follow-up, the right mindset even, or even all the objection handling, it's not gonna work. It's like owning a Lamborghini, right? Garrett, Justin, you guys are a Lamborghini in the making. Here's the truth. If we don't refuel that every single day, every single week, every single month, every single quarter, every single year, that Lamborghini is going to go what? Directly to the repair shop. Those cars are expensive to maintain, y'all. I don't know if you know, right? You can't just put some random gasoline in that Lamborghini. You got to prime it with the best, right? You got to prime it with the best. And I want to paint this picture because how I really got into this type of work was a guy named Tom Billy. You guys know him? Impact Theory, right? This guy's a multi-millionaire. Quest Bars. Maybe if you guys don't know Impact Theory, Quest Bars. He's actually one of the co-founders of that. So I met Tom Billio actually at Funnel Hacking Live back in 2022, and he was incognito, man. You couldn't even recognize him because he was trying to stay under the radar. But I saw him. And while most people were only able to get like 30 seconds or 60 seconds with him, through some tactical, like kind of strategic approach, I actually just commented on his shirt. No one actually knew what he was wearing, but he was wearing an Astro Boy jacket. And I got 10 minutes with Tom. And in that 10 minutes, he told me something that I will never forget. We talked about a couple of different things. And one of the things that he told me that I will never forget, that I apply to everything in sales, is he told me, Larry, if you want to win this game of business and success, you have to understand that success is a game of neurochemistry. Success is a game of neurochemistry. And so neurochemistry, what I've generally found when I've studied both Eastern and Western, like Eastern philosophy and Western science, neurochemistry is actually the synergy of those two. It's how do I get my mindset right, which is what a lot of the West talks about, but how do I get my energy right is what a lot of the Eastern philosophy talks about. So that is actually what neurochemistry is how do I engineer not just my mind, but my body to get primed. So that is what the foundation is. And so I want to help us then understand, once we lock in that energy, what should we focus on next, right? But let me hear from you guys. What are the things that you feel like might be good ways to lock in your energy or to optimize your energy? It's not really anything complicated, but I want to hear from you guys. What are some things that you guys might be doing?
Go take a step outside, go take a little bit of a walk, take a couple breaths.
Mm-hmm. Good answer. Justin, what about you, man?
Yeah, it's like before I do a heavy lift at the gym, I take a little walk around a little bit, get some fresh air.
Yeah, there you go.
Like we hit a big lift, that helps me.
Right.
I do that quite often. Yeah, Gary hears me do that all the time. Just go,
Dude, you wouldn't imagine that is actually, those things help, right? So I'm going to break down what I call energy rituals. And there's different levels for each energy ritual, right? Because these are practical things that are, that I have personally found that works for me and that I actively train and teach my reps to go into. Because anyone can study a script, right? But the difference between what I personally found my top performing reps and even in my own journey and the ones that kind of just like burn out, or her like top performer for like a month, but then like bottom of the barrel the next month, is energy rituals. So let me break this down for you guys, okay? You guys see this? Okay,
yes,
so
sir.
I'm gonna break it down in different ones. Let's go to the most fundamental one, which a lot of people already know. It's the most basic, okay? And that's what I call physical energy rituals. Okay, so this is things like working out. These are things like, walks, right? These are things like even energy rituals such as your diet are all physical things, right? Because you best know if Justin has a huge sandwich or burger before during his lunch break, and Garrett's maybe eating a nice light salad, your energy physically is going to be a little bit differently for that next call, right? So these are all things that I engineer, and I have a whole training on what I call my energy system, where I actually teach my clients. This is something practical I invite you guys to check out, is understand your sleep chronotype. Do you guys know what that is? Is that like, you guys know what a sleep chronotype is? I never knew what this was. This shit's crazy, man. So a sleep chronotype is literally just kind of like personality types. It's where your prime circadian rhythms are. Where your prime circadian rhythms are. So if you ask me, hey Larry, what are your prime time hours? I already know the answer to that because I took a free test. It's between 10 to 2 o'clock. 10 to 2 o'clock. So I'll give you guys all the links and resources to this after. But one of the things I did was I started to actually align my sales calendar with my circadian rhythms. I do not take a meeting before 9 a.m. All my main high focus energy, like most important tasks, are done between the hours of 10 to 2. My lunch and where my energy dips is actually around 2 to 3:30. So that's where I take my lunch, right? 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. is where energy starts to pick back up. And then energy where I need to rest is usually after 7, between the hours of 7 and 9, right? So my sleep prime time is actually 11 p.m. Nick would probably like gasp. He's like, dude, what the heck? Because Nick's all about waking up early, right? I tried the waking up early thing. I found out it actually, I had less energy over a span of 30 days waking up early than I did when I just slept at 11, woke up at 7. And I only found this out because I was aware to my sleep chronotype. So everyone's sleep circadian rhythms are actually different. So that was the thing that I made a mistake, was I was just like, hey, just pile all the calls on my calendar from 9 to 9 and I'll just keep it all open. And so what I changed is, once I was aware of my circadian rhythms, I actually knew exactly when do I take all my sales calls, when do I batch my follow-up calls, when do I do my admin, when am I doing my workouts, when am I eating, when am I sleeping. This one thing, y'all, changed the game for me, because guess what? I was showing up still at about 80 to 90% at call number 5, even though it was call number 5, because I knew how to engineer my physical circadian rhythm. So that's number 1, physical, right? From there is the mental energy levels. So one of the things that we want to be doing as sales reps is actually continuously bombarding our subconscious mind with great sales material, right? Just like what you guys are doing now. So this is actually an energy ritual, because when I align my mind to be in a state of learning and understanding, hey, what is the thing that I'm studying right now? When I'm entering my calls, I'm aligning my energy and my state and my intention to be ready for that stuff. Oh, I'm working on my discovery right now. I'm studying discovery material in the morning, getting intended for the day, so that way I'm on top of it as I'm entering my call. So that's mentally things that we can do is studying. This can be sales training. This can be a good book, right? I love reading in the morning for about 15 to 30 minutes to prime my mind, because what I don't want to do and what I used to do is I'd be like waking up late, first calls in 20 minutes, mind is not primed, and you're just getting body slammed by the prospect, right? So there's things mentally that we want to be doing. So that's reading books. Some people really like, watching sales training, different things like that, right? So that's the mental energy level. And then the last one is what I call the spiritual. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to be religious. This is more so taking it from the mind into, again, the mind-body connection, right? Because we have the body connection in physical, we have the mind and mental. Spiritual is actually aligning those. Okay? So what is this for me? This is meditation. This is prayer. This is breath work, right? For me, reading a Bible is also a spiritual act. These are different things that I invite people to start to actually integrate, not just from like, hey, this is removed from business. This is a whole 100% integrated into my business life. Because again, this is what combines all the work that you're doing here. when you're aligned with yourself, when I do these 3 things in a day, I will be good and primed. And it doesn't need to be this 1 hour or 2 hour long, like morning routine, guys. This for me, my morning priming is 15-minute walk in the morning, get my sunlight, 15 minutes reading my book, and maybe 5 to 10 minutes of meditation. You can get that done in 30 to 45 minutes, right? So if you block out that hour before you have your prime time of sales calls, you get those things primed up, aligned, you're gonna be good to go, all right? Any quick questions on this 3 before we go into the next core topic here, y'all?
You actually answered what my question is going to be. I was going to ask what you would recommend in the morning, but that's actually perfect.
Yeah. Any questions there, Garrett?
No, sir. I'm all good.
Cool. So that being said, guys, I'll give you guys more resources to go deep on this, right? My morning and my evening energy rituals might be a little bit different, right? So physical might literally just be stretching out in the evening after I've been sitting down or standing up each day. Mental might really just be like journaling or reflecting, and then spiritual might just be a quick prayer before I go to sleep, right? So these are, it will differ based on, again, your circadian rhythms, right? So with that being said, let's go on to the next thing. Once we lock in our energy, what should we focus on next, right? Well, we got to focus on what we call consistent long-term success, because energy management is what I call the short game that you guys play. Expectation management is the long game. You got to play both simultaneously, the short game and the long game, right? Just like in golf, guess what? You got the long game, you got your driver, short game is the putt, right? So we got to understand how to play both. And at the end of the day, this is something that I have a question for you guys. You guys watch the NFL? You guys watch football?
Yes, I cover it a lot.
There you go.
He does not.
Okay, Garrett, what's your team, man? Who's your team?
Unfortunately, the Cowboys.
Cowboys, okay. So unfortunately, mine is the 49ers. So we're getting a lot of injuries this year, right? In fact, this is Debo right here, bro. His fantasy team is his team, so that's funny. So this is really interesting. They did a study of looking at NFL players, football players who had long-term successful careers compared to those who had really good careers, but they were like really long, or they were short-lived and was filled with injuries. And so they looked at all the guys that were like really, really like almost like they're like super, super good, and then all of a sudden they just like broke down. Bodies broke down. They're really strong, right? They were the guys who were lifting heavy in the gym, willpower, just pushing through. They were over-indexing in strength. Well, the guys who had long-term careers were actually really focused on one thing, which is flexibility, which sounds so soft when you think about football. It's like, oh, dude, the flexibility was so good, right? But the thing they noticed was when they were getting impacted on injuries is these muscles were really strong, but the actual flexibility of their bodies could not actually flex in a certain way. So every time the bodies hit impact, it would break. Well, the guys who were doing the simple shit, like literally stretching, focusing on flexibility, on their mobility work, they were the guys that had long-term successful NFL careers. So what does that mean for you guys? The game, the long game of expectation management is not actually a game of willpower, trying to push through and hustle and out-motivate yourself, but it's actually a game of expectation management. It's a game of how do I create the right expectations and understand how to deal with my losses, my failures, and the lows just as much as I can deal with the highs. Because any rep can feel good when they're smashing it, when the leads are going well, when they're closing every deal. But what are the reps who are actually successful long-term? It's the guys who I noticed that, when there's a bad week, they're even keel, man. All my guys who are top 1%, every single time, they actually look like this. Their energy and their performance actually look like this. Just really consistent. Just like this. Their ups and downs were just very consistent. Because they had a very good outlook in the long term. While the reps that were really good for maybe 2 months, but then we're disastrous or end up quitting the team or end up burning out or end up just performing badly. This is how they actually looked. They were so volatile. We don't want volatility in sales. We understand that, hey, guys, when there's a bad week, sure, you can feel a certain way. But what I actually did and what I actually learned was when I have a really good week, I don't allow myself to get super high in that dopamine. And when I had a bad week, I didn't allow myself to get super low on myself. I didn't beat myself up that much. I just kept even keel. It's kind of like, it's kind of like Kobe Bryant, the Mamba mentality. He was even keel, man. No matter if he was down 15 points in the fourth quarter, he knew he was coming back, right? And so the long-term expectation, this is one of the things that I learned from one of my sales coaches, Mike Mark. He told me this. I was early in my career, and I was like, hey, Mike, how do you get out of a sales slump? It was like, because what I was doing was I was like trying to watch all the call reviews. I was trying to like watch hours and hours of sales training. I was actually, to be honest, trying too hard. I was trying to use strength, willpower, and motivation to get through a slump. And in fact, he told me something that actually helped so much, which is like, he said, Larry, the only thing you need to know is that when there's a high in sales, expect there to be a temporary low. And when there's a low in sales, Larry, expect there to be a high next. And so when that just clicked for me, I understood, when there's a sales slump, no, I'll be back next week. When there was a high, hey, I know there might be a temporary low. I just came off a record-breaking month. There's going to be a mini dip coming here. So back to what Tom was saying, it was a game of neurochemistry. When I understood that I didn't need to go through this crazy dopamine every single week, I could actually show up consistently every single week. Because guess what? This guy, he's showing up like 100% this week and then like 10% this week. 90% this week and then 20% this week. While me, dude, if I can just stay at about 80 to 90% every single week, if my low is 80 and my high is 90, I'm showing up plus or minus 85% every single week, every single month, every single quarter. And guess what? That shit compounds. This is really hard to compound. So with this guy, what it actually looks like in the long term is this. This guy looks like this. And guess what? I've known a lot of these reps. In fact, I don't work with them anymore. Right? Because they either psych themselves out, they quit, they leave an offer, they burn out. In fact, I used to be this guy for a little bit. There was a moment in my sales career where I was coming off one of the best sales year that I ever had, but I burnt out so hard that I had to take a 4-month sabbatical to just chill out. And guess what? When you look at a two-year span, that shit just averaged out, man. So what if I just stayed even keel and consistent and just showed up? Well, guess what? I would have made more money. I would have made more commissions. I would have had less headaches, and I would have saved some time. I would have actually did this. So this is what I did year 3, the compound effect, because I understood that difference. So I want to leave that with you guys, is just understand these things. It's like, how do we just stay even keel? How do we be this rep instead of this rep? Because guess what? Only 10% of reps actually understand this. Only the top 10% of reps understand this. That's why if you look at just sales careers, you don't see a lot of guys who are like over 50 still selling, right? Who's mostly in sales? It's the young guys, right? But what allowed me to compound from being a setter to then a closer to then a sales manager, then a sales leader, and then end up opening my own sales coaching business was I understood this. Allow the compound effect to take hold, right? So let me pause there. Any takeaways, guys? Comments, takeaways, questions? Making sense?
Yeah. Definitely something I struggle with. I can tell you that. Maybe not entering each week very low, like 10%, but I'm affected heavily mentally by my performance. And I try to go into the calls, like even if I have a bad week, go in with great energy, but
Yes.
I definitely fall victim to that. If I have a great week, I am definitely letting the dopamine get to me. If I'm having a bad week, I am absolutely letting the lack of dopamine get to me.
Yeah, man. And here's the beautiful thing about that, Justin, is you're catching it early. You're 22, man. You're catching it early, right? You can start to become aware to this, because the truth is, you're still in your rookie season, man. You still got your prime ahead of you, brother. You still got your prime ahead of you. You're not even in your prime yet, which is a beautiful thing. What about you, Garrett?
And I think
Let's
one
finish
of the
with
biggest
Justin.
things as well that you said was like thinking about it on a long-term scale, like expectation management. Like we're playing the long game here, and a lot of times I think I forget that.
Yeah.
And I look at it on a way too short-term scale. And I'm like, well, fuck, I didn't get these 2 sales this last 2 days. And like, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about next week, not thinking about next month. It's just like thinking about stuff I didn't get. So definitely need to fix where my headset is at whenever those times come.
Right. Right, because that's the thing, man. Is it's again short-term, long game, right? You want to have what top trades, what top sales reps have, which is like urgency, motivation, necessity, tenacity, right? But at the same time, you need to understand, okay, I can have those things while understanding the other side, the bigger picture, right? It's like investing. If I'm investing over a long term, let's say in my 401k, or let's say I'm looking at Bitcoin for the long term, or I'm looking at real estate, I'm not going to freak out if the market makes a short dip. I'm not going to start liquidating everything.
Dude, I invest. I've been invested for last years now, 5 years now at this point, Bitcoin, stocks, all that. And I have zero problem looking at that in the long term. I am not tripping about what my portfolio is doing on a month-to-month basis because I understand the long-term value. But it is not related to this.
Right. And here's the beautiful thing. You already have that mindset somewhere else in a different domain. It's just you just now are becoming aware to it in this domain and can start applying it. Because imagine how much you'd be self-sabotaging if for every dip in the market, you're just liquidating all your assets. Ridiculous. Guess what? That's what sales reps are doing, man. Right? What about you, Garrett? What's your takeaway, brother?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of on the same boat as Justin. Started focusing on it a lot recently because I've had conversations with Nick about, kind of letting the bad calls go and focusing on the good ones, knowing that, more wins are coming up. So definitely been focusing on that a lot. I like the idea of, after a high, maybe expect a little bit of a dip, and then vice versa. And you may be covering this like later or something like that, but if you have a call, and all of our calls typically last like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. If you have like an hour or 2 hour gap in between your calls, like middle of the day, right? What are you doing like to stay, or at least to get refocused back into it?
Yeah. If like, let's say you have a gap in between calls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always going to depend on my energy. So if I'm like really low energy, sometimes the best thing is actually to get away from the desk, get a workout, get an energy ritual in, and just get myself back in state. If my energy is already high, I just keep it going, right? Maybe I spend that hour doing follow-up. So that is the game of like energy management, right? Because it's not about like, oh, on Wednesdays, I always do a workout at 3 p.m. when I have these dips. Like, yes, you can have the guardrails. You can understand the general map, the game plan. But like Mike Tyson said, man, you can have a plan until you get hit in the face. And sometimes you're coming off a call where the prospect like just annoyed the shit out of you. And like you're now doing follow-ups, and then you're bringing that anger and that energy into your calls with follow-up, and you're just burning deals. Sometimes the best thing to do is a reset. So step one, identify the energy that you're in. Step two, align the right energy ritual win. If you're already in the right state, get the right activity in place. The problem is most people are going from 1 to 3, or just go straight to 3. They're not even aware of their energy. They don't do an energy ritual or an audit. and then they're just going straight into activity with the wrong state. Make sense? All right, cool. Let's keep going. So now that being said, let's go into a little bit of the sales athlete framework, okay? So top 1% sales athletes, one sec. There you go, a little lag there. The top 1% sales athletes will repeat 5 golden habits. There's actually 4, my bad. Typo there. 4 golden habits. They practice, they play, they rest, and they review. So I'll go over each one. I want you to think about, again, let's just use a football analogy, right? Every player, they're going to go to practice, and they're going to usually identify like one area of improvement they want to drill on, right? Maybe the QB just needs to make sure that he's understanding his pocket better, right? Whatever it might be. Then when he understands that one thing that he's actually practicing, he goes out and plays it. He implements that live during the game. Okay? So he's played the game, Sunday's done, next practice might be Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it might be. He then goes into a state or stage of rest because he needs to take his recovery seriously. This right here, my friends, is probably one of the biggest things that I see a lot of sales reps are really bad at. They're really good sales reps are really good at just working all hours of the day. Exceptional superstars are really good at taking the recovery seriously. So again, the energy rituals. For me, for athletes, it can look like ice baths, stretching, diet, all that stuff. And fourth, this is key, they watch game tape. They watch it with their team. They figure out, okay, I messed up on that right there. I got to do that better in the next game. I got to think about that piece of information during practice, right? And they're also tracking their stats. Top athletes know their stats because without the stats, they can't even track progress, right? So the same thing applies for top 1% sales superstars. They got to practice, meaning, hey, what is my sales bottleneck? We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But what is the one area of sales that I need to improve? So that might look like sales training, going through some material, role playing with each other. So Gary and Justin, maybe you guys are doing role play, right? They got to practice. And the key thing is my dad always used to say when I played basketball, how you practice is how you're going to play in the game. So are you role playing like half-ass? Are you going easy on that let me think about it objections during role plays? Well, guess what? You're probably going to fold during the game as well, right? So once we practice, we got to start play. Implement that one thing live during a sales call. And one of the things that I used to do, here's a practical thing for you guys, is I used to literally, during my sales calls, the thing that I was working on, I'd be like, okay, we're going to work on discovery, specifically going deeper in discovery. And I would have that top of my notes because I know that was the one thing that I was practicing during the game, and now I'm going to implement live on the call. Because there's so many times where you guys can overly train and then not implement any of it because you're too scared, right? I've been those. I don't know if you guys have been in those shoes, but there's times where it's like, I know I need to ask that one question during discovery, but I don't want to come across as salesy, so I'm just going to skip it. Oh, I know I need to go a lot harder in the let me think about it objection, but maybe he's going to call me an asshole if I do, so I'm not going to do it. Right? So it needs to be an intentional implementation during the actual live sales call. And then once we're going through this process, right, when you've had a long day of calls, maybe a long week of calls, you guys need to take your rest seriously. Right? And resting, and I've fallen prey to this too, but resting is not scrolling Instagram and watching your short form reels till 1 a.m., right? Resting is like, guys, I was literally on Sunday, I went to like a health and wellness center. I went in the sauna. They took me through a meditation. I did an ice bath. I do this monthly because I want a monthly reset. These are the things that are like things that I take seriously, right? For you guys, it's going in the gym, having a good workout, eating the right food so that you're getting fueled, stretching after a long day of sitting down possibly so that your body is recovering, right? It's the meditation, the prayer, right? The things that genuinely allow your mind to rest. And that includes having a cutoff time of like, hey, this is the time on Tuesdays that I don't take any more calls. I'm not doing any more admin. And in fact, I'm not even thinking about sales anymore. Like, you need to take time for your mind to wander as well, and wander in a good way, right? Allow the learning actually doesn't come from when you guys are taking notes right here, right now. Learning is actually going to come when you guys are allowing your mind to be at a state of rest and process all this information. It's when you're going to sleep. It's when you guys are taking time off and going on that walk and then just listening to some good music, and then, that gold nugget about what Larry said earlier today, it just clicked. That's real rest. And then number 4, review, right? Watch and take notes on call reviews, track your numbers. We're gonna go a little bit deeper into those call reviews and tracking your numbers here in a second. But I'm gonna end with this kind of example because I'm a huge Warriors fan. In fact, I was not a bandwagon. I've been a Warriors fan since 1999 when they were absolute dog shit. Terrible. We were the worst team in the league, right? And one of my favorite players of all time is Steph Curry because he saved our franchise, made us a dynasty, right? I don't know what teams you follow. I don't know what feelings you have about Steph, but there was something really interesting about Steph Curry. So Steph, back in 2009, when he was a rookie, he had 0 rings, and this dude was injury prone as hell. Injury prone, okay? In fact, he was not the great point guard that we know today. He was a really good shooting guard. He's a really good shooting guard. So what did Steph have to do? Well, he had to go through the sales athlete framework. He had to identify what's the one area of improvement that I had to do, which for him at the time was he's actually had to become a better passer and a ball dribbler. Had to be really good with his handles. So he started really intentionally for a whole year it was after his rookie season, it was his second and his third year, he really just practiced becoming a really good playmaker. He would practice that, he'd implement that live in the call, he'd take his recovery seriously, and then he'd watch his game tape and make sure that he was getting better at his assist, right? He took that same framework, and then in a span of after a decade of doing this, he won 4 championship rings. But he did this for every part of his game. He first did it with playmaking, then he did it with his body so he could be stronger with finishing at the actual line. Then he became and worked on his leadership skills because Monte Ellis had left, so now he was actually the leader of the court. And so for you guys will always have an area that you will improve upon. Discovery, the pitch, objection handling, follow-up, whatever it might be. What we want to do is we want to intentionally stack this one at a time, because the biggest mistake that you guys will undergo in learning is you guys will try to change too many things at one time. And the truth is, here's the truth, you guys have a lot of different things to work on at one time. But we have to identify what is the one sales bottleneck that if I fix will massively improve my close rate, will make me more commissions, and will move the needle the most. So with that being said, I'm going to walk you guys through how to go through that process, how to improve what I call the sales bottleneck. We're going to end with this, and then we're going to go for some Q&A. Sound good? Thumbs up? Okay, cool. So that being said, let's go into the 4 phases to optimize your sales game. I actually learned this from this guy named Ray Dalio. Are you guys familiar with Ray Dalio? He wrote the book Principles.
Oh, I know the book.
Yeah, great book.
But not the guy.
It's sitting there right in my bookshelf. One of my favorite books, guys. If you guys have never heard of it, try to get the Spark Notes of this. And Ray Dalio is like one of the most successful hedge fund managers in the world. And he had this really simple framework that I actually learned from that book when I first read it. And I applied it to sales. He calls it the loop. And what this really means for you guys is just how to learn rapidly in sales so that you guys can achieve new levels in record time. So back in 2020, I was closing at about 20% closing rate. And I got that to about 48%, I think is the exact number. So more than doubled in a span of 90 days. And literally it's because I applied this loop, okay? I understood my goal. I diagnosed my problem. I designed a game plan to do it, and then I started implementing it, okay? So the problem is most people, they do this. Most people do this, guys. They have multiple loops trying to go. I got to improve my pitch. I got to go handle the let me think about it. I got to work on my follow-up. And guess where all these loops go? Down. Because you literally do not have enough energy and attention to fix all these things all at once. And so what I started to do is I started to create themes every month. And I would create 30-day action plans for one core thing. At the time, it was discovery. Hey, I need to go deeper in discovery. So what did I say? I set a goal for myself. I was like, okay, I want to double my closing rate. I want to go from 20 to 40%. Okay? What was my problem? Well, hey, after reviewing some calls, I realized that I literally just don't go deep enough in discovery. So I started diagnosing why that might be happening, what's causing that. Then I just started design a plan, and then I started doing that, right? And over a span, it wasn't in 30 days, but it happened in 90 days. Over a span of 90 days, it went from 20 to 48%. And I started to realize, okay, if I can create this loop in sales to solve people's sales bottlenecks, can I do that for other people? And so I started applying it for other people. And one of my recent clients, Oliver, December 2023 to 2024, so over a span of 8 months, it was really interesting. This guy literally said that he hated sales. He's not a natural salesperson. He felt icky, right? And so I took him through the loop. I said, okay, cool. So phase one, we're going to fix your energy block because that's your number one sales bottleneck. Your goal is eventually to start bringing in, some nice 6 figures and paying yourself. So we're going to build the foundational block of your sales pyramid. We started working on his energy rituals, working on low-hanging fruits, the weakest parts, biggest room for improvement. We started to create a game plan around the call reviews and role plays that were consistently on his calendar so we could get the reps up, stretch him out of his comfort zone, and then we had accountability to make sure that he was doing the whole thing, right? So I was implementing pretty much the loop with him. And here's what happened. So he's a business owner, so a little bit different than sales reps. I have sales reps who've done this as well. But what was happening was he was averaging about 15 to 20K per month in his business. And we got him to about 50K cash collected in a span of 8 months. So he actually 3x'd his cash. So in that span, he was closing at 46% closing rate. He started off about 15 to 20%, like I said, right? He went from hating sales to genuinely loving it, and then he had a record-breaking month in February. So for you guys, if you guys are averaging anywhere from like 50 to 100,000 cash collected, how do we get that to the new normal for you guys? The new low is that you guys are collecting 100, 150K, possibly 200K per month, right? And what was super cool was, I'm not super in the flashy stuff, but he sent me this. He got his first Rolex after 3 months of working together, right? And so the question that I started to raise for myself and also with my clients is, it's really just a game of rapid skill acquisition. What this is just how do we create a positive feedback loop time and time again, right? Time and time again. And if we can create that, that's the difference between hitting your goals in 3 months versus 12 months. Is at the rate that you guys are doing, if you guys continue to improve it where you guys are, you guys probably hit your goals in the next year. But I want to help shorten that time gap and help you guys hit it in 3 months. So that being said, is it cool if I give you guys a quick game plan? It's really simple on how you guys can do this. If I could only do one thing, this is the one thing that I did. It sounds really simple, but it freaking works. Is 30 call reviews in 30 days. Now, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to get you guys out of your comfort zone. But this is literally what I did. Is every single day for a month, I reviewed one call. It can be your own calls. It can be Nick's calls. It can be other people's calls. But it's really just 30 call reviews in 30 days. And guys, it's not like an hour-long call review. This is the thing that a lot of people get wrong. It's literally just one 5 to 15-minute call review. And the focus is you only listen to your sales bottleneck. You only listen to that portion that you're actively working on. So if you know you need to get better at the pitch, all you're doing is listening to literally for maybe that whole 30 days is just 30 pitches. And what you're gonna find is after the end of these 30 days, and even after the first week, you're gonna be sick of hearing yourself pitch. You're gonna be sick of hearing the pitch from Nick. That's the whole point. That's actually where the real learning happens. Because the mistake that I used to make is I'll listen to like maybe 1 to 2 call reviews a week, and then it's like end to end It's the whole call. So I can't even get targeted and focused on solving my sales bottleneck. With this method, I found is when you literally only focus on the discovery, I'm saying you start the call review at the discovery and then you end it as soon as discovery's done. That's the call review. It's it. You literally start the call review at the pitch and then you end the call review at the pitch. It's done. And it doesn't need to be you taking notes every single time. I usually have found, and this is something you guys can write down, if you guys can focus on one full call review, end to end, start to finish, once a week, you'll be good. And then the others can literally just be when you guys are working out, when you guys are cooking, when you guys are, maybe in between calls. Just do that and create it. Literally have a checklist. You can have it physically or digitally. I have it digitally now. But when I'm doing this stuff, it's literally like, all right, I got 5 minutes in between my calls. I'm going to listen to myself pitch from that last call or the call yesterday that I did well. And have a mix. Have a mix of calls that you did well so you can double down on success. Have a mix of calls that you need to improve upon. Don't just listen to one or the other. Okay? So with that being said, are you guys up for that challenge? 30 call reviews in 30 days?